Ken Nelson, welcome to my kitchen. I was craving brownies this morning, so I decided to do something about it. I have all of the ingredients. I'm going to make a gluten-free brownie that uses almond meal, eggs, sugar, cocoa powder, all the good stuff. Join me. First things first, before we make brownies, we need to line a pan with parchment paper. And to do this, I'm going to cut a square of parchment paper and fold it so that it lines the pan. This is most easily done by making a square, then laying it over your pan, getting some idea where the corners are going to be, folding the paper, putting a good crease in it, putting it back in your pan, marking the other side, folding that, putting it back in the pan, folding in the third side, putting a crease, folding in the fourth side, making a crease, and now what makes it all easy, cutting a 45-degree angle in the corner will give us a tab that will rest behind the paper and make it all fold together nicely. So, fold behind, fold behind, fold behind, fold behind. There we go. We've got our parchment-lined pan. If you want to, you can cut off the top edges. I usually leave them so that when I lift the brownie out of the pan, it comes out intact. So I've put 4 tablespoons of butter into my large stainless mixing bowl. I've barely melted the butter so that it's just warm, just enough to melt the butter. I've added 1 cup of sugar to the butter. I'm going to mix this together. And now I'm going to add 2 eggs. And I'm going to beat this all together. When it's all incorporated and mixed, I'm going to add 1/2 of a cup of cocoa powder. This is just 100% cocoa powder that's getting mixed in. Do this on low speed so that the cocoa powder stays in the bowl. If you mix it on high speed, you'll be covering your kitchen in cocoa powder because it's ground very finely. Once it's incorporated, you can speed up the mixer. Now, to this I'm going to add 1 cup of almond flour. This is blanched almond flour that is commercially made. It's very fine. To this I've added 1 teaspoon of vanilla and 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. That's going into my chocolate mix, and that's going to get mixed up. This is going to form the basis for our dough, or our batter. Now that it's incorporated well, I'm going to add 1/2 cup of pieces of walnuts. You could use pecans or almonds or whatever your favorites are. And in here, I have 1/2 cup of chocolate chips as well. Because the batter is so thick, I'm just going to mix this in with a spatula and make sure that the nuts and the chocolate chips are well incorporated into the batter here. As you can see, this is kind of a thick batter. There's no other flour. This is a gluten-free recipe. This will give us a very moist, dense, rich, heavy brownie. It's one of my favorites, and I hope it will be one of yours too. Now that that's incorporated, it's time to put this all into our lined pan. I want to get all the little bits of dough out of my bowl. Because it's a thick dough. It's a thick batter. Okay, that's going to do. Now, use your spatula and kind of push this around into the corner of the pans. You're going to have to hold on to the paper so it doesn't lift and move, because as I said, this is a thick batter. And while it's wet, it's going to be a little sticky on the paper. It will warm up in the oven, which is heating or preheating to 350 degrees. And I'm setting the timer for 20 minutes exactly on this recipe. The first time you make this, you may have to adjust the time just a little bit. But brownies are best not overcooked so that they turn dry, and they're best not undercooked, and it takes sometimes a little while to find out exactly where your oven is temperature-wise. But that's smoothed nicely into the pan, and this should do very well. So into the oven the brownies go. 350 degrees, 20 minutes. The timer on the oven has just announced that the brownies are done, so I'm going to take them out of the oven and set them on a cooling rack so that they can cool. These must cool totally before they're lifted out of the pan. Brownies, especially gluten-free brownies, are not as solid as some brownies that are cooked with flour are, so trying to lift them when they're wet means that they're going to crack and break. And I want to cut these in nice squares so that I can use them with coffee or hot cocoa or tea when I have company. These look wonderful. In touching these, I'm assuring myself that they are done. If you press and the chocolate or the brownie comes back, it tells you that it's finished. If you press and you leave an indentation or it sinks in, you know they need to cook for another minute or two. But these are done. 20 minutes in my oven is perfection. The brownies have cooled. I've just taken them out of the pan and put them on a cake rack so the bottom can cool. Now I'm going to lift them, put them on my cutting board, and cut them into 3-inch squares. I like a little bit larger of format for these because then when you have one, you're satisfied. If you cut them into smaller pieces, you end up having 2 or 3, and in short order, the pan is gone. Well, with this recipe, the pan is going to be gone anyway because these are delicious. So, 2 more cuts. And we've got it made. And now, just to test and make sure that they're really delicious, I'm going to put one on a plate. I'm going to sprinkle a little powdered sugar on it, just to make it pretty. And now I'm going to taste it. I know why I like this recipe so much. These are just incredibly chocolatey. They're moist, they're tender. Well, and they're terribly delicious. Cheers.